Get up, rookie. The metal tray slammed into his chest, splattering food across the cold prison floor. Laughter echoed through the cafeteria as the biggest inmate in Block C towered over him, a mountain of muscle with a cruel grin. You think you're tough? You don't belong here. The new guy didn't fight back. He just stared at the ground, silent, calm, too calm. The others thought he was scared. They didn't notice how steady his breathing was, or how his hands never trembled. What the bully didn't know was that this quiet man once trained under masters who could break bones before their enemies even blinked. In 7 minutes, everything in that prison block would change. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who had no idea who you really were? Tell us in the comments. Before we begin, hit subscribe. It's appreciated. The day he arrived, the prison gates clanged shut behind him like a final sentence. His name was Daniel Lee, quiet, reserved, the kind of man who blended into the background. No tattoos, no swagger, just calm eyes and a steady walk. To everyone else, he looked like another lost soul in orange. But Daniel wasn't what he seemed. He had once lived a simple life in a small neighborhood, teaching self-defense to kids and helping the elderly at his modest martial arts school. Discipline, respect, and balance. Those were the principles he lived by. But life doesn't always reward good men. One wrong accusation, one cruel twist of fate, and Daniel found himself behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. Prison wasn't built for peacekeepers. Every corner was ruled by someone hungry for power. And in Block C, that power belonged to Marcus, a towering bully with scars that told a history of violence. Marcus didn't just control the inmates, he controlled fear itself. Every meal, every shower, every inch of the yard ran through him. When Daniel first entered the cafeteria, heads turned. He looked out of place, calm where others were tense, polite where others were hardened. It didn't take long for Marcus to notice. And in prison, standing out was the fastest way to invite trouble. Daniel kept to himself, avoiding conflict, meditating in the dim corners of his cell. But peace isn't easy to keep where chaos feeds on silence. Marcus mistook Daniel's restraint for weakness. And in a world where reputation meant survival, weakness was an invitation to destroy. What would you do if your calm was mistaken for fear, and survival demanded that you fight back? Tell us in the comments. The tension began on the third day. Breakfast in the cafeteria. The room smelled of burnt coffee and metal trays. Daniel sat alone, eating quietly, when a shadow fell across his table. Marcus. Behind him, a wall of followers, men who lived for the thrill of watching others break. Didn't you hear, rookie? Marcus sneered. You sit where I tell you. Daniel didn't answer. He simply finished his bite, placed his spoon down and looked up. Not with anger, not with fear, but with stillness. That silence infuriated Marcus more than any insult ever could. The next moment, Marcus flipped the tray, sending food flying across Daniel's chest. The cafeteria roared with laughter. But Daniel just stood, wiped his hands, and walked away. To Marcus, it was an act of disrespect. To Daniel, it was the only way to preserve his peace. By evening, the whispers began. The new guy's soft. He's scared. Marcus owns him. Daniel heard them all, but his focus never wavered. Each night, while others fought sleep, Daniel meditated, breathing slow, remembering his training. His cellmate once woke up to find Daniel balanced perfectly on one hand, eyes closed, body still as stone. The guards noticed his composure. So did a few older inmates. But in prison, respect doesn't come from calm, it comes from dominance. And Marcus couldn't stand that someone he'd humiliated still held his head high. One afternoon in the yard, Marcus made his move. A weight dropped onto Daniel's shoulder, hard. He turned to find Marcus grinning. You got guts, rookie. Let's see what's underneath that calm face. He shoved Daniel backward, his crew forming a circle around them. The yard quieted. Everyone watched. The guards leaned on the fence but didn't step in. Fights were entertainment here. Marcus swung first. A heavy right hook meant to end it fast. But Daniel's body shifted like water, effortless, controlled. The punch cut through empty air. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Marcus swung again, angrier this time. Another miss. Daniel stepped back, eyes locked, movements precise, deliberate. "Stand still!" Marcus roared. But Daniel didn't. He flowed. His breathing steady, his body relaxed, years of discipline guiding every motion. Then came the turning point. Marcus lunged in rage, grabbing Daniel's shirt. That was the mistake. In one fluid motion, Daniel's hand moved, a twist, a turn, and Marcus was on the ground, gasping, his wrist bent in a way that nature never intended. The crowd went silent. Daniel stepped back, calm as ever. "I don't want to fight," he said quietly, almost like a whisper. But in that moment, every inmate knew this man wasn't weak. He was danger disguised as peace. Marcus's pride couldn't handle it. The humiliation burned deeper than pain. He got up, swearing revenge. That night, in the dark corridors of Block C, plans were whispered. Marcus wouldn't let this end with a single defeat, and Daniel knew it. His calm eyes no longer searched for peace. They waited for the storm. The storm came 3 nights later. The lights flickered out just before lockdown, and for a brief moment, the prison fell into eerie silence. Then came the footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing down the concrete corridor. Daniel knew what was coming. He stood from his bunk, barefoot on the cold floor, as the cell door creaked open. Marcus stepped in with 3 men behind him, each armed with something sharp and improvised. His eyes burned with humiliation and hate. "You made me look weak," he growled. "Now I'll make sure no one ever forgets what happens when someone crosses me." The guards looked the other way. Inmates turned their faces to the wall. Nobody wanted to get involved. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Marcus charged first, swinging a shank aimed at Daniel's ribs. Time seemed to slow. Daniel moved with the kind of precision only earned through years of discipline. Sidestepping, redirecting the blow, his palms striking with surgical accuracy. The weapon clattered to the floor. One attacker down, another lunged from behind. Daniel dropped low, sweeping his leg in a single fluid motion. The man hit the floor hard, breath knocked out of him. A third came in wild, fists flying. Daniel blocked, deflected, countered. A blur of motion that ended with the man gasping for air, his arm twisted behind his back. Marcus hesitated now, sweat glistening on his forehead. The predator had become prey. He roared and threw a final punch, full of rage, desperation, and wounded pride. Daniel caught his wrist midair. One twist, one precise strike to the chest. Marcus fell to his knees, eyes wide with disbelief. The cell went quiet again. All that remained was Daniel's calm breathing. Slow, controlled, centered. He looked down at Marcus, who now trembled on the floor, pain and humiliation breaking through his anger. Daniel didn't hit him again. He didn't need to. His control was louder than violence. From the cells above, whispers spread like wildfire. He took them all down. The new guy, he's a ghost. He's not one of us. And somewhere deep inside, Marcus realized that fear had changed direction. What do you think will happen when word spreads that the quiet man from Block C just defeated the prison's most feared bully? Tell us your guess in the comments. Things are about to shift in ways no one expected. By morning, the entire prison was buzzing. Whispers echoed through the halls, drifting from cell to cell. Marcus got dropped. Didn't even touch him twice. That new guy? He's something else. For the first time in years, fear didn't belong to Marcus. It belonged to everyone who'd built their pride on power. Daniel, meanwhile, sat on the edge of his bunk, calm as always. The bruises on his knuckles told the story, but his eyes were soft, almost sorrowful. He hadn't come here to fight. He'd come here to survive, to prove that even in a place built on violence, restraint could still mean strength. When the guards made their morning rounds, they didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The look in Marcus's eyes said everything. The bully who once ruled Block C now avoided Daniel's gaze. The men who followed him began keeping their distance. Slowly, something shifted. Meals became quieter, fights less frequent. The balance of power, once ruled by fists, now bowed to discipline. Daniel became a quiet legend. Inmates sought his advice. Some even asked him to teach them what he knew. It wasn't about fighting anymore. It was about control, patience, and dignity. Even the guards noticed a difference. The block that once echoed with chaos had found a strange, new peace. But Daniel never forgot why he was there. Every night he stared at the walls and thought of the life he'd lost. The school, the children he'd taught, the home that was gone. Yet even behind bars, he'd rediscovered purpose, because sometimes strength isn't about hurting others. It's about showing them another way. And in the cold, unforgiving world of that prison, one man's calm spirit did what no fist ever could. It restored a little humanity. The question is, how many more places in this world still mistake kindness for weakness? Show some love with a like and subscribe to stay inspired.